Oh, hey. Right. More struggles, more struggles. Just remembering things as I'm going along. Because I said my husband had to go straight to Walton. No, that's not how he to Clatterbridge. That's not how it happened. I think what happened. I'm not quite sure now. I don't remember what did I say. On the day that we realized he was ill and we went to the hospital and they kept him in there. They kept him in, he was in there for a week. And then after a week, they transferred him to Walton Hospital. And at the Walton Hospital, that's where they did the test for the biopsy. That's where they did the biopsy. It was on the Wirral still. And he was in the Wirral for a week. Sorry, in the Walton Hospital for a week. So that's 2 weeks altogether in hospital, 1 week in Wrexham, 1 week on the Wirral. And then he came home. He came home for a week. So that was 3 weeks altogether. And then after a week, he went back to hospital to Clatterbridge. That's where he was having the radiotherapy. And he was there for a couple of weeks. So the train I was using was the same train I was using to go to Walton Hospital and to Clatterbridge. I was, stopping at the same place and walking the rest of the way. So anyway, so he was a week in Wrexham, a week in Walton Hospital, a week at home, 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks in Clatterbridge for radiation. And he came home after 2 weeks. And after a week, his hair, you clearly see, he didn't have much hair anyway, but the bit of hair that he had fell out. So I shaved him. And we were coming into the 7th week because he was, and at that time we had Macmillan nurses coming, to help and direct me about caring for him and that sort of thing. Family members used to come and visit, but that's all they did. They visited and then they went. There wasn't one that said, don't worry, I'll come and help you. I'll stay with him at night. I'll be the one doing this while you have a sleep, or, I was doing it all by myself. And I didn't expect, and I didn't think it was anybody else's responsibility. But now I'm looking at this persona they created of me and the things I've endured on my own. And if anyone should have something bad to be said about, it's them, not me, because I did everything I had to do. I coped and I managed and carried on. I did it all. So, but what had happened, and you see, I was only young. I was early 20s, for goodness sake. I was early 20s. I wasn't even mid-20s yet. I was early 20s. And for someone who grew up the way I did, okay, back home you could be a mother, or a wife and a mother by the time you're 13, 14, as long as you start your periods. But that doesn't mean that you know all the responsibilities of a mother. It's because you're growing up among other people who care about you. You're growing up among family. So, you would be growing up with your parents on the same homestead. They're taking over the care. They're directing you. They're literally getting it done for you. And you're doing what you know you can. And nobody's picking on you to say you didn't do that. If someone got so sick in the village, you had no clue. That was beyond you. So there were people my age, who would have been at the age that I was, who had never seen a dead body. And of course, I had already seen a dead body because it was my great grandmother, and I had insisted. Because the phone is ringing. Hang on. Right, I'm back. It was my friend on the phone. It's our Sunday phone conversation. Yes, so I was talking about the fact that I was young, and at the age I was at back home, I would not have been given those responsibilities of taking care of someone who was dying. And the grown-ups would have known that this person is too ill and this person will be dying. But I didn't know. I didn't think that I was going to be dealing with death. So after my husband came back from Clatterbridge, and he, after his hair fell off, it was literally like the next day, around tea time-ish, or just after tea, it was about, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I was giving it, we had moved our bed from upstairs into the living room because he couldn't get upstairs. So we were literally living and sleeping in the living room. And I was going to give him his medication, his evening medication, his tea time medication. And normally I'll get a cup of a glass of water and his tablets, and I'll, give him his tablet in his hand and his glass of water to drink. And that's how it happened. But this time I hand him the medication and he couldn't hold on to it. And I thought, what is this now then? For me, I think I did well. For someone my age, with the exposure that I had in life, I think I handled things the best I can. So I don't care who says what. I think I dealt with things the best I can. And I'm not saying it was a bad way that I dealt with things. I think I did extremely well. Because I didn't know what was coming. I had no idea what was coming. The only thing I knew is that he wasn't taking his medication. He wouldn't hold it. And I thought there was something wrong. And I was spotting some of these things when I think something is wrong, and I do something about it. When he came to pick me up from college, and I noticed that he was spilling his cup of tea, I called the doctors, and the next morning we went to the doctors. And on that day, I thought to myself, why is he not taking his medicine? And then what I did was I called my oldest son, my stepson. I said to him, can you come and help me? Your dad, can you hold your dad behind? So he went to the back and sat him up straight so that I would give him his medicine so he would take it, because I didn't know whether if it was just me without anyone holding him behind, whether he would dribble it back or what would happen. I didn't know. So he came, sat at the back and held his dad at the back. And then we gave him the medicine. And I said, well, keep quiet, whatever you're doing now, don't make too much noise. Your dad doesn't feel well. And that was that. Everybody went to bed. And, I was obviously left downstairs with him like always. I always stayed downstairs. And we were just about falling asleep. I can't quite remember, what time it was, but it was late at night. Maybe 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock. I'm not quite sure, but it was quite late. And I was falling asleep and I could hear him grunting. And I thought, that doesn't sound right. I went to have a look and I thought to myself, oh, I've not seen him this ill before. And he looks ill. It was the kind of ill that, excuse me, African people in the village, when you say you're ill, they look ill. Here people, you can say, oh, I have an illness, and you look at them, they look well. So this time he looked ill, and I thought I better call the doctor. So I didn't know who to call. I didn't know what the out of hours number was for the doctor, but I just called the hospital. And then the hospital said, oh, they will send an ambulance. And when the ambulance came, it was only afterwards I realized that, so that is how serious he was, because of the way the ambulance man tied him up on this ambulance chair. It wasn't a trolley. It wasn't like a trolley. It was like one of those trolley chairs that someone is sitting, but they secured him to it, with belts. And so at that particular, I was the only adult. There was 3 children upstairs who had to go to school in the morning. I had the baby, so I couldn't leave them. I didn't know the law very well still at that time, but I knew that you were not supposed to leave kids alone in the house. The hospital are going to take care of him. They've got his records and that kind of thing, because I told the ambulance people that he's under treatment for, and I suppose they knew what they were looking at, although I didn't know what they were looking at. They must have known that he wasn't going to make it, and they could also see the naivety in me, I suppose, and they just said, well, we'll call you to let you know how he's doing. And I said, I'll be there in the morning, when the kids have gone to bed or have gone to school. And so I couldn't go back to sleep, I couldn't, because I remember Judy came downstairs, and I said, oh, your dad's gone to the hospital. And then she didn't want to go back upstairs to sleep, so she came and slept with me in my bed. And I thought I couldn't sleep, and she was lying there, and I was sitting up, and I thought, I don't know. It's like there was a bit of a commotion, that kind of, with him being ill and the ambulance men, and now my adrenaline is sort of trying to settle down to get back to sleep. So I wasn't settling back down. And so it must have been, I don't know, about 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings. And it was the doctor at the hospital saying that he'd passed away. So that is when I thought, oh, I better tell his son, because I can't sleep on this until the next day to tell him that your dad died yesterday in the morning, early hours. So I phoned, and so it was about 4 o'clock by the time they were getting the message and things like that. And so that, I only learnt about the what they say about me about that particular time of my husband dying. I only learnt about this when my son died 3 years ago. My stepdaughter sent me a vile, when I mean vile, it was vile message calling me evil, and that I had killed my own son, and I was so evil what I did to them, her and her brothers, and how I was so evil that I let my father die, their father die alone. It was like hearing something new about somebody else. And I was like, you're so misinformed. What told you that I let your dad die himself? But I wasn't going to argue about that. I just thought, what? So this is what you talk about? But then, having said that, I could have had an opportunity of knowing exactly where I stand with these people. I'll tell you later about that, because a letter was sent to me by the older son. He died in the March, and I struggled on. I carried on March, April, May, June, July, August, September. I'm not sure. I think it must have been October. I moved to a new house just on the other side, in the other street. And it was far better. It was as if you're in a different town altogether, but I was just in the next street. I moved from 4th Avenue to 3rd Avenue, and it was that different. It was that better. But I'll tell you about the difficulties I was facing there, also what was going on before I got, when we got there, that kind of thing. And so basically what had happened was that, so everybody was informed. I did get help. It wasn't me that I arranged for his funeral. They obviously took it over and did that. And on the day, so bearing in mind, I was at home after we arrived from Zambia. I was at home for about 8-9 months. So I was at home solidly. And then I went to college. So, which means quite so many hours in the day I wasn't at home, and my baby was with the father. And whenever we got dressed up to go to church, it was all of us dressing up, going to church. But this day, it was funeral. And I had, this is how poor we were. I was making my own clothes using curtain material that I had bought on the Beast Market. And I had also bought suit patterns for babies and children, and bought materials, these curtain materials, and I'd made my toddler a proper suit. And he was wearing this suit, and I put a little tie on him going to the funeral. And he knew that every time he dressed up like that, we would all be there going to church. And we had all gone there, and we were all in the church sitting, and he looked around, and his dad wasn't there. It was very quiet in church. But the moment he realized his dad wasn't there, and the coffin was coming, and they put it at the front, this little child made the whole church cry, because he cried with such passion. We cried with such despair. He cried. It was like, where's my daddy? Where's my daddy? And the whole church was in tears because of how this baby was crying. So that was his first experience of loss at such a tender age. And yes, it was heartbreaking. But, we got through that. And then what had happened was, I was sort of wondering, how are we going to live, that kind of thing. And Judy was staying a lot more at her brother's than she was with me. So I was more with the boys. And it was like, oh, she likes the boys better than she likes me. It had nothing to do with who I like, who I don't like. It had to do with discipline. And I did not know how to sugarcoat it. I did not know how to just ignore it. One, I was worried that something terrible, seriously, was going to happen, especially when it comes to the law. And we are going to be pointed, oh, it's them. And maybe this is why I have a bad reputation now, because I've always been scared of a bad reputation. And I will tell you how my older son monopolized on this, knowing that I was fearful of a bad reputation. So I did not push things when it came to doing specific stuff, because I didn't want to be seen as someone who's such a bad person, or I didn't want to be named and shamed. He knew I was extremely shy and passive when it came to that. So I was, I was very insistent. We will not, you can't behave like this, because these are the consequences. Although having said that, those two particular incidents I've told you about, whipping my son and grabbing her to push her in her room, they were the only physical contact I've had in that respect with them. But they've made it as if I was enjoying it and I was doing it daily. I wasn't enjoying it. If I had a choice, I would have been back home, because, as I said before, I met a woman, Anna Owen, at the Citizens Advice Bureau, because after a couple of years, I was starting to think to myself, I hate this life. I've had enough. Because I had, like every woman, after they had a baby, they have a few, set number of months where they don't have their periods. But then their periods start. And mine started, it had started, 3-4 months after I had my child. So I was a regular woman, I was okay. But since we got here, only a month, maybe I had 1 or 2 months. Oh, no, actually, I don't know how many months, maybe 2-3 months. My body shut down in some way. I didn't have a period. I didn't have a period for months and months on end. And I hadn't told anyone. And I only learned years later when I became regular again, it was because I was so unhappy. And certain things happen to your body. And I was actually planning to come back to Zambia. But what was I going to do? I didn't want to leave my child, and I didn't have, I wasn't coming away from someone who had money. So, I was thinking, I'm going to find a way of how I can leave and go home and take my child. And one, because I knew I wasn't going to afford the ticket. What was in the back of my mind was, if I went home, who is going to pay for my tickets? So initially that was why I went there. And then when I got there, there was other issues were raised about my immigration status and this kind of thing. At the time, I didn't actually care. I didn't care whatsoever. All I wanted was to just leave and go back. So that's how I met Anna Owen. So after the funeral, we were surviving, we were managing. So also I think that maybe, when I had mentioned to my husband, because at that time I was also I had been going to college, and I think he must have been. I can't remember whether he asked me to say. Oh, I know. I think he said he said to me, "Can I share, or can I need to start talking to Judy about periods?" And I thought, oh, right. And he says you can show how what you use. How you use yours and stuff like that. And I said, I haven't had my period for months. And he didn't just sort of say, oh, really? What happened? Or, whatever. Oh, let's address this. He just cut me out and sort of thought, because I was going to college, I must have had a boyfriend and now I was pregnant. That's not how it was. It was just the living conditions did something to my body. My body shut down where it came to, producing eggs and that kind of thing. I wasn't having a period. So I hadn't had one for months. If it was babies, I could have had 2 in that time. So, yeah, that was before he died, and, we had that issue. But anyway, so after he was dead, I stayed with the boys, and we tried the best we could. I didn't go to work straight away. We were still just managing and living on income support. But then it came a time when the council said to us, they were going to move us to the next street because they were doing up those houses on that street. and hoping that doing the houses up and putting central heating and fitted kitchens in those houses would make the street better and bring different people to live in them. So they gave us a house to live in 3rd Avenue, which was lovely, nice big rooms, nice big kitchen, that sort of thing. It wasn't a fitted kitchen, but there was some cupboards in the kitchen, and it was a better kind of house. And so what I did was, they gave us the keys to the house, and the benefit people had given me £1,000 of widow's benefit, and they had also increased my child benefit with an amount for widow's benefit. So they, so I thought I got all that money, and I'm going to make sure that the house I'm going to, and I've seen how it is, I like the house, I'm going to make sure that it is comfortable. So I had central heating fitted, put in, paid for by myself. I asked the council if I could do that, because they said they couldn't do that for us, but if I wanted to do it, I could go ahead and do it. So I used the money for my widow's benefit. I put central heating, I put wall-to-wall carpet, nicely fitted. I had the whole house, all the walls freshly decorated, new wallpaper all throughout. So it was a lovely place. But I hadn't budgeted well, because budgeting was not my forte. I had not done anything in terms of expenditure like that. So anyway, I had spent all my money, and that week I thought to myself, I can make a bit more money by going to work. So I got myself a job at Sharps. They made DVDs, videos, televisions, the Japanese company Sharp that made the Sharp brand electronics. So I was working in there on the production line. But I did a big mistake, because this is when you don't know if the people that welcome, if the people I came to in this country, if they had welcomed me, maybe they would have helped me better, because they would have known what was going on in my life. But after their dad died, the only thing in common we had was the kids, and I could have been left on my own, and that would have been it. That would have been that relationship done and finished. But what had happened is, I got this job in Sharp, and it was the week that we moved to this new house. It was a lovely house, and it was supposed to be a lovely house. But the thing is, I didn't even have money for anything. I managed to buy some milk, and guess what? I was stupid enough to think that those cornflakes that he sweeps off the floor from his company, that they have put in bags to throw away, and he gives us the bag instead. I thought to myself, he'll bring us one of those bags. I'm thinking, so I'll make sure that the last penny I have, I buy milk. I bought 4 pints. So the only thing we had in the fridge was milk. And the boys came back from school, and the older boy said, there's no food. And I just said, I've got no money, or something flippant. I said, I just didn't know what to do or say. And I don't know whether I had already put the phone in the house or whether they walked or something. I think they phoned. I think I did have already put the phone, because all of that was done by the council, that kind of stuff. It was just the decorate. Oh, that's it. They also gave me a decorating grant. It was like a voucher. That's what I gave the chap who decorated the house. I gave him the voucher to do that. But the central heating and the carpets I bought myself. And so they picked up the phone and phoned their brother and said, we don't even have any food in the house. She said she's got no money. So rather than say, oh, what happened, and lend me some money, they came and they packed the boys' things and they went. So my little boy and I were left in this supposedly was supposed to be our lovely house now, and it's just us, and it's become very cold because there were so many of us. Now it's just the two of us just looking at each other. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do it now? I gave up my benefits. I've got a job. And not quite sure what's going to happen. Not quite sure. And by that time, this woman called Lynn had friended me. I mean, I don't know how she came about. That was her environment. She obviously knew me well. But the people that I knew well were the people that my husband had made friends with. So I was leaving my son with them. It wasn't a new thing to leave him with them, because my husband used to do it. He could leave him with them while he went shopping, or I think once or twice we'd gone away for a weekend or something, or overnight, and we'd left them we left him with them. So I didn't think there was anything wrong there. So things seemed to be okay. But obviously things were not okay. So I was leaving him with those people while I went to work. Everything seemed okay. They would tell me how happy he was, and something I was not noticing until much later I realized when I connected, and I thought, oh my Lord. But that is something for another day. Tonight I'm done, and that was my life so far up to that point. All right. So, my boy didn't just lose his father. It was like months down the road, he's lost his brothers and sister because they've gone to live with the people who despise me. And on the day that they actually took them and packed all their things, their brother, my husband's first son, he wrote me a 7-page letter. No, yeah, there was a 7th page, but majority of it was on 6 pages. I read the first 2 sentences. I can't remember what they were, but they were enough to cut my soul that I put the stove on and lit the papers and burnt them down in the sink. I don't know what the rest said. I only read 2 sentences on the first page. That was enough to cut my soul. It was too much, and I did not want to hear the rest. So whatever it is that he wanted to tell me, I didn't know. I have not heard it. So maybe that's God saving me, because if I had listened and heard all of that, I don't know how I would have reacted. But I knew that I did not want to hear anymore, so I did not read anymore. I burnt it. And that was that. So, all right. Next time.